Heath here from pickinglessons.com. John Hardy, great tune, great song. In this lesson, we're going to take a look at 3 variations in the key of G. We've got our first variation, which is more of a kick break. And then we've got our second variation, sort of taking it up a little bit. And then our third variation, where we're moving up the neck and got some more variation in there as well. So 3 variations in total. Here in this lesson, we're actually going to take a look at the complete first lesson, which I would consider kind of like a kickoff for the song, but it could also just be used for a solo. So we're going to take a look at that in a moment. But if you head over to pickinglessons.com, you're going to be able to get yourself a copy of the tablature that we're going to be working through here. Now, in the members section there as well, you'll be able to access the second and third parts of this lesson where we'll break down the next variations and some backing track and play along tracks there as well as the tablature. So pickinglessons.com. Now, let's start out with this first variation. We'll just run it nice and slow to begin with, and then we'll break down some of the techniques that we'll be using. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Okay, so there was that first opening break. We're going to break it down here in a moment, but basically we are in the key of G. Even though we're starting on a C chord in the tune, we're actually in the key of G. So the G, C and D chords are the feature, and we are in the key of G. Now, whenever we reach the C chord in this portion of the break, what I want you to think of is that your fingers really want to be positioned around the C chord as best as you can. This first measure we're about to look at, you'll see why. After our 3 pickup notes, 1, 2, 3, 4, C chord. And we play the bass note there, the 3rd fret, the C, then hammering on that 2nd finger, and then an up and a down strum essentially, but on those 2 strings at a time. So we're working around that C chord to play that portion of the melody. Try it with me. Ready, and 1. As we move into the second measure, we're still featuring our C chord, but with a slight variation up to that F note. And we're using some cross picking. There's a lot of cross picking throughout this arrangement, in this variation, but the others as well. We're certainly pushing the level of playing up here too, so we're not going to spend too much time on some of these techniques because this is more advanced, and I'd assume if you're having a go at this one, you've got some good chops already. So we'll just break down some of the important areas. So firstly is that C chord. So hammer on, watching the rhythm where there with the cross picking. So I would approach that just following the 8th note. So the hammer on, down, up, down, down, up. You can come at it in different ways, but I would suggest trying it with that alternating method following the 8th notes. Down with the hammer on, down and up, down on the quarter, down, up. I just feel that that makes it easier to keep your tempo and your timing steady. So first 2 measures with that pickup note around that C chord. 1, 2, 3, 4. go, C chord. Now, over the G chords, we tend to just, in this variation, throw in some sort of G run or G lick. So here, with some passing notes back into the C chord. So firstly, we've basically just got a G run, starting on the open D note though. And that will run us back up to the C chord. Now, some of these licks in this arrangement have featured in the previous 2 guitar lessons at pickandlessons.com, the bluegrass licks. There's 2 bluegrass lessons so far at pickandlessons.com, and some of these licks are featuring there. So if you're not familiar with some of the G runs and some of the licks we'll look at later on, check out those other bluegrass lick videos because they're really diving into a bunch of different licks. All right, so moving on though. So that G was pretty easy. Back into the C chord. So another nice cross-picking moment, and we'll use this one again in a moment as well. So C chord, then the 3rd finger, bit of cross-picking. So you'll notice that I didn't start with the C chord, but I'm finishing the measure with it. That's the important part. Don't just go and move your fingers around. You want to build your chord and leave it there as you need it. The next measure though, similar idea to measure 2, or same idea as measure 2, so that cross-picking moment. So from the 2 pickup notes out of the G chord and measure 4 into the C, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Moving on to the G, variation on a G idea, G lick. And the same run up, so that G lick, 1, 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3, 4 up to the C. Same idea. And another G run. Here in this measure, we're up to measure 12. We're about to head to the D chord. So we've got this nice passing note, these chromatic notes. We're using those to get us to the D. So from the open G, the F, the E flat, to the open D in measure 13. So that opening section so far, there's a little bit of repetition, some of the same ideas used, some basic cross-picking, working out of the C chord shapes, using the G lick variations over the G chord. So I spent some time on that, but this tail end of the tune, we sit on the D chord for quite a long time. We have 6 measures of the D chord, and this is a challenge, keeping it flowing while it's still sounding relevant to what we're doing. And this portion, firstly, we've got this nice syncopated idea that we're going to use. Now, we're going to keep pedaling off the open D. So we're going to keep coming back to that open D, and then we're going to feature the A and the B notes on string 3, and we get this syncopation, so where the accent of the notes keeps changing from the offbeat to the downbeat and the offbeat. So we have 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1. Ready, and 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4. So you can see how that sort of, the emphasis is shifting within the 2 measures. Picking wise, really just follow the rhythm. 1, 2, 3 and 4 and 1, 2 and 3 and 4. Try to come at it in your regular picking method, so down on the beat, up on the offbeat. Really straightforward, but really, really important when you get a passage like this. So coming out of measure 12 into 13, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Then into that higher D there on measure 15. Try that one more time, same spot. Ready, and 1. Okay, moving on into measure 15 and 16. So measure 15, lots of space in there again. Those accent points are shifting. Downbeat, offbeat, off, down, and then resolving there on the D in the next measure. So that there, we're kind of featuring the D triad in our playing, so that's where our sort of focus is, although we've got some passing notes in there. So D, B, A, F to the F sharp, nice bluesy passage to the D. using that same chromatic line again to get us back to a D before we close it out. So there's 4 measures of D. Let's try those 4 with pickup through with the starting point at measure 12. 2, 3, 4, 1. So lots of syncopation through there, but sounds great. Then we close out with this slick, again from the bluegrass slicks lesson. Over a D chord, 2 measures we have. Back to the G to close it out. So just quickly breaking that down, we have open D, octave D, F, pull off. 1, 2, 3, 4, and. Next measure, we measure 18. We're heading back to a G here, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1, watch your picking. Down, up, 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 down, down. Picking's important. That syncopation again. And the G run to finish it out. Okay, so there's our opening break. That one is a little bit closer to the melody, particularly in the first portion of that. So I would use something like this as the kickoff for the song, as opposed to perhaps the next 2 variations which start to stray a little bit. We're still featuring melody in there, of course. We're tying it in as pretty closely. But this one is a nice stock standard kind of opening to it. Around those open position chords works really well, and it's actually not too difficult to play. As we progress through the next 2 variations, they will get more challenging too. So nice kick-off variation, but of course can be used at any point for a solo against the tune. So over at pickinglessons.com, you will be able to get the next part of this lesson and the tablature as well. So jump on over and I'll see you there.